Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, no.
Do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you. Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Don't say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues.
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where it is August and we are so delighted to talk about our favorite director, Alfred Hitchcock. I'm Karen Peterson, joined as always by Lauren Humphreys Brooks.
Hello.
How are you, Lauren?
I'm all right. The weather in New York is significantly improved today, and with it, my mood, which is good. So that in itself, just like, this is delightful. Everything is wonderful, though there's no humidity at the moment. It's great.
For anybody out there, probably nobody listening to our podcast, but if anybody out there is still on the climate change is not real line of thinking, I just want you to understand that our summer in California, while literally half of the country has been under extreme heat warnings, it is August 2nd and our high today is 82 degrees. Normally we are well into the 100s and have been. I think we've had 2 100-degree days this year, and both of them were in like April.
Wow.
It's been a weird year.
Wow.
So,
I mean, I think you said before I started recording, like, very different from when I was there last year. And I remember the day that I left LA to come back east, it was 105, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't particularly upset with the heat when I was in California. Like, it wasn't bad heat. One of the problems
really
that we've
manageable.
been having, one of the problems we've been having in the East right now is that not only have we been hitting like 95 and 99, 100-degree days, but the humidity has been just overwhelming. So this is like subtropical climate, and that's what's really been horrible. It's like I said before, it's like you walk out into New York for a couple of days and it was like walking into a bowl of soup. Yeah, not fun. It's just not fun.
No,
everyone
I remember
smells.
Montreal being like that. It was just, it was awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the East Coast, when it gets to be that level of heat and humidity, is just, it's horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this month is August. We have, I don't know, have you had a nice time off? We've been off for a couple weeks.
I've had a pretty good time off. There's been ups and downs, but I had a really nice couple of days up in the Adirondacks and the mountains. Went and visited my parents. There's been a lot of shit going on, but definitely some good times in there as well.
Good. Yeah, I had a nice visit with family in Boston. I got to go for my niece's first birthday, and I got to meet my nephew, who is my niece belongs to my sister. My nephew belongs to my brother. It's funny because I have 2 brothers. They both have boys, and then my sister has a girl. So, so I got to snuggle with babies and hang out with family that I haven't seen in a while. So it was a nice time. That ended up being my whole vacation because some plans changed, but that's okay. We roll with it. So it's been a pretty chill, relaxing summer nonetheless.
That's good.
Yeah. But as I mentioned, this is August now. And what important world event happened in the month of August, Lauren?
It's the birth of Alfred Hitchcock, the greatest filmmaker of all time, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
He was born on August 13th, and which is a Wednesday, I believe, this year. So there's I think it was last year, the year before, that it was actually Friday the 13th was his birthday, which I loved. But yeah, so of course we're going to talk about some Hitchcock stuff. As don't do that otherwise.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Hitchcock over the course of this podcast. Of course, we're also doing a bonus series about Alfred Hitchcock Presents for our Patreon. So I think it's fair to say, and you got an A+ in Hitchcock studies last year, watching everything that you could get your hands on, because there's a couple that are lost to us. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that we're both fans.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Alfred Hitchcock was born August 13th, 1899. And what I found a little bit funny about that is that my great grandfather was born in 1898. And I was recently telling a story about him as he passed away when I was in high school. And he lived into his 90s. And I was telling a story about him the other day to one of my student employees, and she stops and she goes, wait. You knew someone who lived in the 1800s? So I'm no longer born in the 1970s old. I'm knew someone from the 1800s old. And when I saw that Hitchcock was younger than my great grandfather, I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. All right.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so this month we're not, in previous months previous years we've done an episode or two. We've talked about several of his films over time. This year what we're going to do is a little bit different. Last year we did Hitchcock remakes, including one where he remade his own movie. This year we are starting with a Hitchcock film, North by Northwest, which we're talking about today, and then the rest of the month will be discussing Hitchcockian films that have been defined as Hitchcockian and that we agree with that assessment, because a lot of films get described as Hitchcockian that we take issue with. Not every movie is Hitchcockian just because it has a twist, for example.
Well, and you even get like directors who are being labeled the new Alfred Hitchcock. I remember M. Night Shyamalan got that particularly after The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And then a couple of his others. And then it's kind of edged away from that, but we still get that where it's like, oh, he's like the new Hitchcock. And it's like, first of all, that's a bit of an insult to the directors because, I have my issues with M. Night Shyamalan, but I wouldn't say like it's not fair to compare him to Hitchcock. It's not fair to say to him like, oh, you have to be like Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock is, as we've discussed before, one of the few filmmakers, certainly from his era, who's able to turn his kind of brand style of filmmaking into a brand, literally. Have his name and his likeness very much associated with a particular kind of filmmaking and make that into something that was just marketable. And a lot of filmmakers don't do that, can't do that. And to say like, this new brand new filmmaker should be compared with really one of the few filmmakers of the past that is continuously brought up and is continuously referenced, and is known by fans, contemporary fans, kind of across the board. It's a very unfair thing to do, I think. So, and then it's also just that then you watch M. Night Shyamalan's films, it's like, okay, yes, he has a twist, but that's not Hitchcockian.
Right.
That's not Hitchcock. Like there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, and like, I mean, so on Wikipedia, because you brought this up before. So on Wikipedia, they have a list of elements considered to be Hitchcockian. And they have examples next to those of like, oh, these films show that. And it's like every one of these, it's like, okay, some of these, yeah, they're pretty, that's, I think of Hitchcock when I think of some of those elements. But a lot of this is like, oh, yeah, he did this in a couple of movies. So so even like a twist ending. How often did Hitchcock use twist endings?
That's true. I mean, like, I would say Psycho has a twist ending. Yeah. Right.
Psycho, maybe Vertigo does.
Yeah, like there's definitely a few. I've talked before that I think that a lot of the things that we label as like quintessential Hitchcock films tend to be like actually a very small section of Hitchcock's oeuvre. And usually they're the American films that come actually about the time that we're talking about, when we're talking about North by Northwest, that come in like the mid to late 1950s into the very early 60s. So there's a swath of films that's what we associate with him. Then there's a whole bunch that are just outside of that. It's like, okay, so what is really the Hitchcock film when you're actually talking about it in those terms? And he's been called an auteur. He is an auteur, but I think that it's a much broader category than we tend to give it credit for. So yeah, twist ending, Vertigo, Psycho,
exactly.
Like I'm trying to think that's really like a twist. That's like that surprising shift, right?
That's the thing. And I think we could do a whole conversation just about twist endings too, and how sometimes people think it's a twist just because they didn't see it coming, even though, like, if you're paying attention, the story's leading you there anyway. Like, twists are actually not as common in movies as people like to say that they are. They're just not reading the clues.
Yeah, I think that's true. And also a real twist ending, I think, has to kind of reconfigure your entire experience of the film.
Yes.
So like you think, and that's what happens in Psycho. That's what you think it's about one thing. You think it's telling one story. You're approaching the characters in a specific way. You're being led to approach the characters in a specific way. And then something shifts nearing the end of the film. And you're like, oh, this is actually very different from what I thought it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and it can't be. One of the brilliances of something like Psycho is that you can rewatch it knowing the twist ending, and it actually enriches the experience. I can watch Psycho. I've seen Psycho. You've seen Psycho so many times, and it's almost more enjoyable when you know what's going to happen. Because that's when you can begin to pick up like, oh yeah, he's not cheating you. He's not like lying to you at any point. It's just like, no, it was all there. We just didn't realize where it was going.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just to bring it back to The Sixth Sense and M. Night Shyamalan, yes, he had a very effective twist in that movie. But that, because it does, once you find out that Bruce Willis has been dead the whole time, if you didn't catch on to that, I had a roommate who guessed it right away, and we were really confused how she did that. But it does it, like you're saying, it recontextualizes the movie, and then the next time you watch it, it's a different experience. That doesn't mean that Shyamalan or any other director is a Hitchcockian filmmaker. He might have tapped into some Hitchcockian elements for his movie, but then his movie is very much his own. So anyway, well, we're going to be talking more about the idea of Hitchcockian throughout this month, but today we're going to talk about an actual Hitchcock film, one that I still am shocked we've never talked about before.
I mean, if you talk about Hitchcockian, this is kind of the Hitchcock film.
It
is. I think Truffaut even said that it was sort of the culmination of Hitchcock's American career, and he said this to Hitchcock, by the way, who's like, yeah, probably.
Yeah. In fact, so okay. The basic, the basic plot summary of North by Northwest, you've got Cary Grant, who plays this ad man who is falsely identified as a secret agent and ends up getting chased across multiple states, ends up on a train, meets up with Eva Marie Saint, after he's multiple times tried to be killed, and it ends up at Mount Rushmore for a climactic scene. Now let's look at that list again of some of the Hitchcockian elements. Climactic plot twist. I would say this, you could make the argument, because it turns out that the person that everybody thinks Cary Grant is playing doesn't actually exist.
Yeah,
he's mistaken identity, but the person doesn't exist.
And we find that out, we, the audience, he doesn't, but we find that out, I think at the end of the first act. Like, we're literally told he doesn't exist.
Right. But I'm just looking at it from, like film bro perspective. They'd be like, it's a twist. I'm going with the Wikipedia definitions.
The cool platinum blonde.
Platinum blonde for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. The presence of a domineering mother in someone's life. I wouldn't say she's domineering, but she's definitely a presence.
She's definitely, I enjoy that description though, because when we think about the whole Hitchcock issue with mothers, like we think of, Norma Bates.
Yeah, we think of mother.
Yeah, we think, or, maybe the mother, Alex's mother in Notorious. You don't really think of Jessie Royce Landis in this movie. She is fucking delightful.
She's so great.
She only shows up in a couple of scenes, but she is great. Like, she is so much fun to watch.
Yep. An innocent man accused. Pretty much, yeah.
Mistaken identity. That's really what it is. It's the wrong man narrative.
Right, which we'll get to that in a second, I think. Yeah, that's down below. Restricting the action to a single setting, no. Characters who switch sides and or who cannot be trusted. Isn't that like every movie? Characters can't be trusted.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are honestly, they're just describing mysteries or thrillers, which are not all, and then if you say, well, all Hitchcock films have these elements, no, they absolutely do not. Mm-hmm. In fact, not even, when we're talking about North by Northwest, some of these elements are not going to come up.
Yeah. Tension building through suspense to the point where the audience enjoys seeing the character in a life-threatening situation.
Again, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about like plot structure?
Right? Average
tension.
People thrust
narrative tension.
Yes. Average people thrust into strange or dangerous situations. Definitely North by Northwest.
Yeah.
Bumbling or incompetent authority figures, particularly police officers. I mean, I just went and saw The Naked Gun yesterday. I guess that's also Hitchcockian then.
Yes, so yeah.
Very funny, by the way. Use of darkness to symbolize impending doom. Strong use of what's that?
I was gonna say that's never been done before. Hitchcock.
Never. No. Strong visual use of famous landmarks.
Definitely here. I mean,
yes.
I mean, we do have the Mount Rushmore sequence is justifiably famous.
Yes. Yeah. Mistaken identity, of course, yes. The use of a staircase as a motif for impending danger or suspense.
Well, it's interesting though. We don't get a staircase in North by Northwest, really. We get, I mean, Hitchcock does like using staircases, mirrors, things like that. The kind of refraction of identity. And also just, staircases are great for building suspense when you really come down to it, because you have to move slowly up and down the stairs. There's a lot of space to kind of build that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. The use of a MacGuffin plot device. Yes, that definitely is present here. Preferring to crime for mystery rather than presenting it explicitly. Okay. Well, I don't know how that's Hitchcockian, but okay.
Again, well, and some of this is almost like you're talking about postcode films.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about films being made under the production code where you couldn't show certain types of violence. Right. And Hitchcock does, again, he does like the innuendo of violence. He likes, and that is one of the ways that he creates suspense, and one of the ways that he creates horror as well, is not showing too much of something. And he's very, very good at that. But again, not something that is specific to him or unique to him. He's just good at it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff is, yes, this is stuff that Hitchcock does, but it's because he's good at it, not because he invented it or it's a particular, sole feature of his work.
Here we go. Train scenes.
Undoubtedly. There's definitely a train in North by Northwest.
There, I can confirm that is true. The color red provoking a fearful and potentially self-destructive reaction.
Not really.
A beautiful woman needlessly... What? A beautiful woman needlessly embezzling her employer's money.
That's like 2 movies. that I can think of. That's a Psycho, which is actually the MacGuffin of Psycho,
Right.
and Marnie, which is pretty much the MacGuffin of Marnie as well.
Oh
Jesus
man,
fucking
who wrote
Christ, man.
this? And then
I don't know.
voyeurism and surveillance.
I will say that the Wikipedia article does have the little box at the beginning that says this section does not cite any sources.
Yeah.
So I do think that someone just like came up with shit and just like typed it in, and no one has really gone through to like correct it or anything. The thing is, and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about over and over again as we go through this, is that I do think that Hitchcockian, the concept of the Hitchcockian film is in a lot of ways more about a vibe. It's before we started recording, you mentioned film noir, and I think that it's much closer to that. It's a sensation. And there are definitely films, and the films that we're going to be talking about this month are definitely films that have those kind of connections that feel like they could have been directed by Hitchcock even, but weren't. And that's where you get that kind of the sensation of the Hitchcockian thriller.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about North by Northwest. We've been talking about this a long time. So North by Northwest, I last year got the opportunity. I had never seen it on the big screen before, only on the small screen. I do have the Blu-ray. But last year at TCM, this movie was released in 1959, by the way. So last year for the, I guess it would have been 65th anniversary. They did a 70 millimeter restoration re-release and limited release, and the TCM Film Festival here in LA actually screened it. So I got to see it on the giant IMAX theater at the Chinese Theater down in Hollywood, in 70 millimeter, and what an experience that was. It was very, very cool. Have you ever gotten to see it on the big screen?
I got to see it on the big screen. I saw it once just in a theater, once in film school, and it did not get to see it in 70 millimeter. But yeah, it's fantastic. It really is a film that lends itself to that. Yeah, it's probably Hitchcock's biggest film in that sense. Like it has so much scope. And you get like not just, and I think that it's even just in the playing of contrasts, the use of claustrophobic elements, the use of danger, the big, kind of set pieces like Mount Rushmore and the crop dusting sequence, and then the smaller, much more contained sequences and like the train, or a lot of the time like him fleeing through New York, all of that stuff. Like it's a film of contrasts, and I think that it plays really, really well on a larger screen. And on a small screen, but
yeah. Of course, this movie stars Cary Grant, Eva Marie Saint, and James Mason. Grant plays Roger Thornhill, who, like we were talking about before, he's an advertising executive. He goes to a meeting in a restaurant, and when he is calling out to the waiter, that is a signal that someone else at another table mistakes him for being this U.S. government agent that they're scoping out. So this is what sets off the mistaken identity and gets the plot going. Incidentally, Cary Grant did 4 movies with Hitchcock. What were they, Lauren?
Let's see: Suspicion, North by Northwest, Notorious, and To Catch a Thief.
Correct. This is why you have an A+ in Hitchcock.
You quiz me on this shit, Karen. You're be like one of those dudes like, oh, see, you like Hitchcock. Name me one of his films.
I'm really not quizzing you. I'm giving you the opportunity to show off how much you know and how quickly you know it. That was great.
I did actually once have a dude like look at my Hitchcock tattoo, by the way, and say like, oh, have you seen Psycho? And I think
people who don't watch Hitchcock movies have seen Psycho.
I think that he was trying to be friendly or so, like, but I just wanted to slap him. I was like, no, I've never seen Psycho.
What's that? That's why I sent you that Pink Floyd video the other day on Instagram.
Exactly. It's like, oh yes, my Alfred Hitchcock tattoo. No, I've never seen his most famous film ever. Like, I
I
just
just
like the
saw it
vibe.
in a shop and I liked it.
Fuck
It's a
my life,
person?
man.
Anyway, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this opening sequence because I just think so much happens here that's so fun. Can you learn, because you are the expert, can you talk a little bit about this setup and how it leads into the gets us going into the action, I guess.
So I love the opening of North by Northwest because we get that, really exciting Bernard Herrmann score with all the crisscrossing lines and everything. And then it turns into a skyscraper, it turns into New York. It all kind of leads us into this really kinetic movement and intensity of like New York City in the late 1950s. And the opening kind of credits end with Hitchcock missing a bus, right? That's his cameo. And I love that. I love the fact that it starts that way because it almost introduces you to this whole thing of so much of this film is going to be basically coincidence. And it's going to be Roger Thornhill, especially the first 5 minutes, just essentially being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? And if he had made, one of the things I love about it is that if you watch the film multiple times, you notice that if he had made one different decision, if he had walked to the restaurant instead, to walk to the plaza with the secretary instead of taking a cab, if they had waited longer for a cab, like he shoves in ahead of a number of people, right? If there are all of these things that he could have done just slightly differently, that it would have put him there a minute or two later, and that would have resulted in him never having this adventure, basically. So I like that. I like that this is so well built and well constructed. But we get everything about Thornhill within the first it's like a 3-minute sequence. Within the first 3 minutes of this film, we know who he is. We know he's an advertising man. We kind of get his personality. We get his energy. We also get kind of his frivolity, that he's not really, he's very confident, but it's all very superficial. We even get his relationship with his mother. Like the whole thing leads up to the fact that he tells his secretary to call his mother and then realizes that she can't because his mother's playing bridge somewhere. And that's like the telegram that he decides he has to send in order to tell his secretary, by the way, you can't actually get in touch with mother. And that action is what gets him kind of grabbed by these guys in the Plaza Hotel and turned into this non-existent government agent named George Kaplan. It's such a tightly constructed sequence. And it's almost like if you stop paying attention, you're going to miss all of it. And it's just at the same time so entertaining, so energetic, and preps us for kind of the energy and the kineticism of this film.
Yeah. And I like the point you're making about how if any one thing had been different, and it's not that we're blaming the victim here, but if he were a little bit more patient, if he was a little bit more paying attention to other people around him and not just pushing through life, being the most important in his own mind, then this wouldn't culminate in him at Mount Rushmore trying to get away from bad guys. But the romantic side could say, but then he wouldn't have met the next love of his life either.
Well, and also the way that he's represented early on in the film is that his life is very energetic. It's very, he's very confident, etc. But it's very superficial. It's not, he's an ad man, right? He's on Madison Avenue. He's doing all of the things, he's successful, etc. But is he really having any fun? Like, is he really living in that sense? And his character over the course of the film does actually deepen. We get him being more emotional, being less confident, and losing some of that confidence also winds up making him stronger. And it does, eventually introduce him to, an actually potentially fulfilling relationship. It changes the world around him. And so it's a good thing that this happens to Roger Thornhill. It's a good thing for him, really, when you come down to it. And it's also funny. Like at some point, Hitchcock does kind of like punishing his heroes. And it's funny that all of this is happening to this incredibly cocky advertising executive who just gets caught up in something that he can't get out of. Like everything that he does, everything that he says, like, no, this is who I am. It's like bullshit. I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah, his whole life is built on lying to people, basically, because that's what ad men do. And now when he's telling the truth, nobody believes him.
And yeah, exactly. And it plays into also, I think, Cary Grant's persona and his, like, I mean, he's such a charming and likable figure on screen. But he also has that element of, you know, the fast talking guy, the sort of the ladies' man, all of those elements that like Hitchcock kind of weaves into this character. And makes him at once very likable. We are willing to follow him. Like, it's very much like we are absolutely there for this guy. But also, you know, kind of enjoying, I think, to a degree, him sort of fumbling and getting confused and getting upset and you know, all of those things. There's something fun about it as well.
I think there's just throughout the movie, none of it feels, I mean, these are big things that are happening. You know, these are bad guys that are after him and they set him up. They try to murder him on a road, a mountain road, and you know, all these things, or you know, the cliffs of the sea, whatever. But the way that everything just keeps moving, and there's always sort of this more lighthearted tone. So even when really serious, you know, scary things are happening to him, we just feel thrilled. We just are having fun with it. We never feel scared for him. Because there is this cheekiness to it that maintains it's cheeky but also moving the whole time. There's really no downtime in this movie.
There really isn't. And it's funny because it's one of Hitchcock's longer films. It's 2 hours and 16 minutes. And you don't feel like that. You do not feel like that this is a film that's over 2 hours. And it's because I think of that kineticism, and also because of Cary Grant himself and the way that he anchors the film, and the way that he keeps things moving. But yeah, I like, so what you're saying about the lack of seriousness. Robin Wood, who's a Hitchcock scholar, described this as being one of Hitchcock's light comedies, and it really is, and it's a good light comedy. And his argument is basically that this is a light comedy, but that does not denigrate it. This is right. This is one of the best examples of light comedy, because you get involved in it. It's an action movie, right? Like, you get involved in it. You get, you are dedicated to like Roger. You want him to succeed. You kind of feel when he's in danger. You feel when Eve is in danger. But at the same time, it is funny. And I think that some of that is also that there's only this like glancing nod to the fact that this is all about espionage, right? So he like meets James Mason and Martin Landau, and James Mason is like at his James Masoniest.
Yes.
Like he's like, oh, do we really have to play these games? You know, that kind of thing. And poor Roger Thornhill standing there like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And just like, oh, you really do play your many roles so well, Mr. Kaplan. It's like, I'm not Kaplan.
Yeah. And then he's like, I can show you my ID. And there's like, yeah, of course you have multiple IDs. And yeah.
It's parody. Like, that's the thing. It's funny. You've got these villains who are, you know, mustache twirling. You've got Martin Landau standing there, like, talking about like when, you know, Justin committed suicide. It's like, who the fuck is Justin? Cary Grant has a great line where he's like, I've never even been in Pittsburgh. He's so upset. And it's funny, but at the same time, you're like, I think that you're also embedded in the fact that this is someone who knows who he is and is being told over and over and over again, you're not, you're someone else.
Even by, not even just by the like bad guys, though. He's in a hotel and the maid is like, oh yeah, you're Mr. Kaplan. You told me to do this. And the guy comes with the suit. Yeah, you told me where it was. And like even these guys are insisting that he is Kaplan.
Yeah, it's this, the first act especially is all this fragmentation of his identity and, you know, kind of deconstructing it in a lot of ways. And so then you get like, you know, him not being believed that, he isn't Kaplan. And then he sort of begins to be like, okay, I'm going to become Kaplan almost, right? He tries to convince the police, these people tried to kill me. And they thought I was this guy named George Kaplan. And all of these people are referring to him as Roger at this point. And so there's all this going back and forth where he's like both Roger Thornhill and George Kaplan. And this all sort of culminates in the sequence, which is one of the few sequences outside of Thornhill's perspective. So we kind of get removed from his subjectivity and removed from that focalization. And we're kind of put into this position where we actually see this meeting of this like group of FBI officials who effectively tell us like George Kaplan doesn't exist. This guy has like accidentally gotten caught up in all of this. And we're not going to do anything about it.
Right. Like, it's not our problem, even though it is their problem.
Well, and I do love that he eventually makes it their problem. He causes so much difficulties that he does finally be like, okay, we have to do something about this.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. What do we want to talk about next? Let's talk about let's talk about Eva Marie Saint.
Let's talk about Eva Marie Saint,
because she is wonderful. So she plays Eve, a person who turns out to be working for James Mason because of reasons. And I like the way that her character is introduced. So she doesn't come in until at least a half hour into the movie. It's pretty far. And it's about a half hour, I think. And anyway, they meet on the train when she has tipped a porter to seat him at her table if he happens to come in. And they have this very suggestive conversation. I have to say, I've seen this movie a number of times, but when I was rewatching it again this week, I was really struck by Cary Grant essentially talking with a stranger about like wanting to sleep with her in their very first conversation. And I was just like, if Cary Grant said these things to me, like, yeah. I would definitely invite him back to my train room.
this I do think this is an example of very good casting. Because this is one of those things like that doesn't happen, and you do almost go like, dude, you've got to get that she must have ulterior motives here,
right?
Like, but because it is Cary Grant, I do think that the audience is much more conditioned to be like, yeah, if I met Cary Grant on a train, I would definitely fuck him. Like,
yes,
it is that. Like Hitchcock is very good at understanding how to use his leading men, and he uses Cary Grant brilliantly in this. So you absolutely believe that Eva Marie Saint, like that within that, at least in the introduction of that scene, you absolutely believe that this beautiful young woman would take one look at this guy and be like, I have to have him.
Yeah, but I also think it says something about him too, his character, who is running for his life, doesn't know who he can trust, and still when he meets this beautiful young woman and finds out she tipped a porter to have him sit with her, his response isn't, wait, I shouldn't trust her. His response is like, of course she's into me.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like it's kind of we see this a lot actually in a lot of film noir, just like, bro, why would you trust this woman? And this is absolutely justified because we find out that no, she's actually James Mason's mistress,
right? And
you shouldn't trust her.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so I love the way that we find this out, that she's working with him, that she's with Mason, because like they have this whole conversation. She agrees to hide him in her room because they're making an unscheduled stop at a station, and two police officers are getting on board, so presumably looking for him. I forgot to mention the fact that now he's wanted for murder for killing a UN like person representative. And yeah, so she agrees to hide him in her room, and she hides him in the bed, like folded up into oh man, well, it's so funny because he's sitting there complaining about how he can't breathe and everything, and I was just like, shut up, dude, you're hiding from the law. And then I started thinking about it, I was like, no, that would be extremely claustrophobic if you could even fit in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. But yeah, so then as soon as he goes to sleep, and then she passes the message. That's what it is. She passes a message through the porter to the bad guy. What is his character's name?
Van Damme.
Who am I forgetting? Van Damme. That's right.
Van Damme. Yeah.
And that's how we find out that.
Well, I love these little, so most of the film is focalized through Thornhill. Like we pretty much follow him throughout, except in these very short scenes where we get other perspectives, or we get a more distanced perspective, and we're told information that Thornhill doesn't have.
Yeah.
So the information that she's actually working with Van Damme, that she's related in some way to Van Damme, right? We don't really know how quite yet. But that information is really important for the next section of the film, because as soon as she's like, oh no, I'll go make the phone call for you, I'll arrange to have you meet with Kaplan, the audience knows Kaplan doesn't exist and she's working with the bad guys. So we get this wonderful setup for the crop dusting sequence that is like this building of the suspense, where we're sitting there going, no, don't trust her, don't do this, you're going to be in danger. But of course we know he's going to go because he has no reason not to trust her. We have all this information that he doesn't.
Yeah, it's a different type of suspense. Like, we're not along with him trying to figure out what's going on. We are along with him trying to figure out how he's going to figure it out and get out of it. So we, as the audience, know more than he does. And that is a tricky type of suspense to pull off that Hitchcock is very good at.
Yeah, and I think he's doing it in this film in particular by not giving us too much. He's not telegraphing too much to the audience about what is going to happen next, but it does kind of allow us this little bit more of a build-up, right? So we're not really in Roger's position when he gets off the bus in the middle of a cornfield,
right
in the middle of nowhere, but we do know that something is coming. We know, because we know, okay, so they've gotten him out to this random place in the middle of nowhere. What is the plan here, right? What is going to happen to him? And it's a fantastic plan, really, though it also doesn't make any fucking sense for how, like, I think he even, like, later in the auction sequence, he even says, like, what are you going to try to kill me with next? Because it's ridiculous. Like, why the fuck are you trying to kill him with a crop duster? That is so elaborate. Like, so elaborate to try to kill this man. There has to be an easier way.
You would think, but he keeps getting away. So, if you kill him with a crop duster, then it looks like he just was an idiot and didn't get out of the way of the crop duster. So it's actually pretty smart.
They're like shooting at him too. It's not just that the crop duster is like trying to run him into the ground. They're like firing at him with a machine gun.
Well, the thing that gets me though is that the crop duster is actually spraying stuff. Like, it's really crop dusting.
Where there ain't no crops.
Right. Oh yeah, that whole thing is dead.
So let's talk about the crop duster sequence, because I really want to talk about. I love the crop duster sequence. It is absurd, iconic. And it's absurd and iconic. And actually, Truffaut made a mention of this in his conversation about North by Northwest with Hitchcock, that that there is, and in fact, he says it's obvious that the fantasy of the absurd is a key ingredient of your filmmaking formula. And, talking about what is Hitchcockian, there is this absurdity to some of the violence in Hitchcock. The crop duster sequence is brilliant. It is, I think it's 7 minutes long. There is very little dialogue. other than the back and forth between Thornhill and the other guy who's waiting for the bus, and is kind of the thing that establishes for the audience, pay attention to the crop duster. Right. Like it sets it up for us. It's like, well, that crop duster's just dusting where there ain't no crops. It's like, oh, okay, shit. Like,
yeah,
all right.
Not good.
Yeah. So it's that blot on the landscape that's like, okay, this is something that it's not supposed to be there.
Right.
And then we get this like extensive sequence that is this assassination attempt. And but it's silly. There is a silliness to it. It's like this is a strange and outlandish way of trying to kill someone. But it creates this like it's brilliant because it's something we really haven't seen before. And Hitchcock actually, in the Truffaut book, I won't read the whole thing, but he talks about how this whole idea came out. And he was saying I was faced with the old cliche situation. A man who's put on the spot, probably to be shot. Now, how is this usually done? A dark night at a narrow intersection of the city, the waiting victim standing in a pool of light under the street lamps. And so he goes into like talking about this is how it usually this kind of sequences go. So his idea was, all right, what is the antithesis of this scene? No darkness, no mysterious figures, nothing. Bright sunshine and a blank open countryside with barely a house or tree in which any lurking menaces could hide. So he's completely turning the cliches on their head and being like, where is the least likely place for this to happen? And how does it happen? And it's brilliant as a result. I think it's surprising, it's bizarre, and is also very tension-filled and quite terrifying in itself. It's one of the best things that he's ever done on film.
Yeah. One of the other things that's great about it, and I'm sure this wasn't part of his thinking at the time, but one of the things that makes it such an iconic scene is the fact that it's not something that you can just replicate without being a parody, like you cannot convincingly use that in a serious movie without it just being absurd.
Yeah, exactly. It's this reversal of a cliche, but the cliche is something that we've seen 100 times. Like, and Hitchcock could have done something like that, and it would have been very enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
but we wouldn't remember it the way that we remember the crop dusting sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it, if you talk. So again, I think if we talk about Hitchcockian, having that association with something that is truly something you cannot, like you say, you cannot replicate. Without it being referential. It's kind of like the entirety of Psycho. Like Hitchcock himself could never redo Psycho, right? He could never pull off what he pulls off in that movie, and no one else can.
Right.
Because without being referential to Psycho. That's part of the brilliance of it. So yeah, absolutely. The crop dusting sequences, you can't do it. No one could do that a second time.
Yeah.
Except as a reference to Hitchcock.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And of course, this whole movie culminates in he ends up in South Dakota for a meeting, and this is where the big climactic scene happens, is in South Dakota at Mount Rushmore. Another thing that you can't do without it just becoming, too referential, or what's the other word? Like stealing, but
waitress.
No, I can't think of the word. Somebody is shouting it. I know that they are. I can hear them shouting it. I just can't hear the word.
Well, it's funny because the Rushmore sequence is actually kind of Hitchcock redoing his own sequence from Saboteur. With the hanging off of the Statue of Liberty.
Right. Yeah.
And so, he's sort of taking that concept and transposing it onto Mount Rushmore with the heroes instead of the villain, and transforming it in a lot of ways. But yeah, again, you can't have that. You can have something maybe similar, but it's still going to be referential.
Yeah. What is this other word? This is going to drive me crazy. Anyway, But yeah, I mean, how many movies have you seen that have a scene at Mount Rushmore?
It's true. It's elaborate too. Like it is one of those scenes where you're like, what's the plan?
Right.
Like they are kind of pushed to a point where there's nowhere else they can go. So they're like, okay, we can't go that way, we can't go that way, we can't go back down. We're just gonna have to climb now, I guess. But at the same time, you're like, you're gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. And again, it's putting the characters in a position where we, the audience, know they're gonna get out of this. They have to.
Right.
The whole film has been set up for them to get out of it. It would be very bizarre for Eve and Roger to die at the end of all of this, right? But then it becomes a question like, how is this going to, how are they going to escape?
Right.
You know, how are they going to survive this?
Yeah. I guess I need to back up a little bit because we've just kind of just brushed right over everything that happens to get to this point where Roger has now agreed to help and take on the identity of Kaplan. He's going to pretend to be Kaplan now. And part of this at this point for him is because he wants to help get Eve out of this situation. And so he ends up at the house that Van Damme has and where they are plotting to leave. They're trying to smuggle this microfilm out and they're gonna take off, and Roger is able to get a message to Eve, and so then the two of them are trying to sneak out, and that's when they get caught, and this culminates in this chase across the face of the faces of Mount Rushmore.
Well, can we talk briefly about the microfilm?
Yes. Yeah,
because there's this whole thing, like, so for the first part of the film, we're like, okay, the stakes, right, are, you know, who's George Kaplan? How is he going to get out of this? How is our hero going to escape it? And why is he being mistaken for this man?
Right.
And then we're told, like, George Kaplan doesn't exist. He is made up, and he's been created to protect the identity of our agent in the field, right? And so the next sequence is, all right, him meeting Eve and kind of that romance developing. And then it's like, okay, so we now know that George Kaplan doesn't exist, but what's the whole point of all of this? Like, why is Van Damme after him? What is Van Damme up to? The microfilm is incredibly unimportant. It is the absolute pinnacle of the concept of the MacGuffin, because it is driving the plot in the sense that this is what Van Damme is after. This is what he's trying to protect. This is what he's using to get out of the country, all of this stuff. No fucking clue what's on the microfilm. And it does not matter. Thornhill doesn't really care. Eve barely cares. We're never told by the FBI, the CIA, or anyone else what is going on there, except that, you know, we have to protect it. It's like a vague Cold War thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the audience really does, like, if the microfilm is destroyed or not, we don't care about it. What we care about is our two heroes escaping and surviving.
Yeah.
And it's such a brilliant use because it does highlight how, first of all, what we really care about in these kinds of stories is not the threat to national security or anything like that. We care about the characters. And none of this is really important. This isn't that serious, basically. And Thornhill even says the major, like, falling apart of the moral universe here is not we have to stop Van Damme from leaving the country. It's that the FBI has basically been pimping Eve out and exploiting her in order to win a Cold War. And Thornhill even says, like, maybe you should get used to not winning Cold Wars if this is what you have to do in order to do it.
Yeah.
And the audience is very much on his side.
Yeah. And her side, because now we want her out of this situation too.
Exactly. We care about her and we understand why she's doing what she's doing. I guess that scene between Thornhill and Eve, where they're in the forest and they're, like, kind of basically catching up on everything, and she's sort of explaining her motivation. That was something that Hitchcock had to fight for. The studio wanted it cut out because they thought it wasn't necessary. And Hitchcock actually said, like, no, we have to keep this scene. And it's incredibly important because it's where we understand Eve's motivation and why she has behaved as she has.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes certain to place us in sympathy with her as well as him.
Yeah, I would agree. Super necessary. Because yeah, by the end of it, we're rooting not only for them to get out of this, but when they kind of ride off into the sunset together, we're happy for them. We want this to be a new leaf for both of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to chat about?
I mean, I could probably keep talking,
Yeah.
but no, I think, this has been described as, I think even Ernest Lehman, who's the screenwriter, described it as like the Hitchcock film to end all Hitchcock films. It is this kind of culmination of a lot of Hitchcock's concerns, the wrong man narrative, the spy thriller, the sort of cross-country adventure. It's very referential to the 39 Steps, which, can feel kind of like a precursor to this, and then also does very different things with it. It is very much this quintessential Hitchcock film. I think it's one of the films that we think about when we talk about Hitchcock films.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and yet at the same time, there is, like you said, there's these parodic elements to it that, there are things that are usually important in these stories that aren't important.
Yeah.
There is this kind of mockery. I mean, it's very much the mockery of the FBI, but also just a mockery of the whole kind of structure of everything. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's ridiculous.
Right. Like at the beginning, we were talking about if Roger had just walked to the restaurant, it's only 2 blocks, or if any one thing had happened, he wouldn't have been in the situation. The entire thing also hinges on these incredibly dumb bad guys whose entire plan to figure out who they're after is someone who's signaling to a waiter in a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's silly. It's strange, and it is ironic because on the one hand, it is very serious, like being taken for the wrong person, and Hitchcock explores this in a lot of his films. One person being mistaken for another.
Mm-hmm.
And in something like The Wrong Man, which is the film with Henry Fonda, it's incredibly serious.
Mm-hmm.
In this, it's like, this is ridiculous. And so there is this kind of serious irony going on there, and this inherent humor within it. And all of these kind of absurd experiences that Roger Thornhill has that are funny, but are also very serious at the same time. And he's playing back and forth with that. And then the whole goddamn film ends with what Hitchcock said was that was a symbol. It was symbolism.
Yeah.
Of like Eve and Thornhill going to bed together, and the final shot being a train entering a tunnel.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, yeah.
It's phallic symbolism.
Yes. All right. Anything else?
I do love North by Northwest. It's a lot of fun.
It's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really just such an enjoyable movie. And I do, if anyone gets a chance to see it on a bigger screen, definitely go for it. It is a great experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that is going to wrap things up then for this week. Next week, we are going to be talking Hitchcockian movies with a movie that I actually thought was done by Hitchcock the first time I watched it, and that is Charade. So
everybody thinks it was done by Hitchcock. It is
the
most Hitchcock film that was never directed by Hitchcock.
It's so true. Yep. So we're going to be talking about that next week. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for listening. We especially want to thank our patrons who help keep the show going. They are Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriotta, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Steve, and Sharon. If you would like to join them and become a patron too, you can go to patreon.com/citizendame and sign up. And there you will get access to things like our bonus series, which right now, as I mentioned, we are almost, we're about 2/3 of the way done with a bonus series on the series Alfred Hitchcock Presents. We're doing all of the Hitchcock directed episodes of that. So that's a lot of fun. We've also done Our Flag Means Death, and in the next month or so, we'll be starting a new one. So lots of fun there. Yeah. And you can also, if you want to help support us as a one-time thing, you can also go to our Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/citizendame. And then there's other ways to find our work. We've got our website, citizendamepod.com, and you can reach us by email, citizendamepod@gmail.com, or you can find us on social media at Citizen Dame Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky, and at Citizen Dame on Letterboxd. Or if you'd like to reach out to us individually, Lauren, where are you?
Where am I? I'm on Instagram and Letterboxd at LH Business.
And I'm on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson. So that is going to wrap us up for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
I know, I look vaguely familiar.
Yes.
You feel you've seen me somewhere before.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how I have that effect on people. It's something about my face.
It's a nice face.
You think so?
I wouldn't say it if I didn't.
Oh, you're that type.
What type?
Honest.
Not really.
Good, because honest women frighten me.